What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Sorry it's been quite a while from the last couple of videos we've had. Been busy with dealing with the buggy after the competition, and that kind of leads us into this video about the Super Duty. So when I got back from the last competition, I noticed I've been losing coolant on the old 6.0 powerstroke. So if you can see all these white spots, this white residue, that's signs of coolant blowing out of the degas bottle. Since this truck has an EGR delete, it deletes the EGR cooler itself, so the cooler is not present. So the only other thing that it could be is head gaskets. Now, if you remember in one of my first videos, I had mentioned that I had already done head gaskets before and studs. Now, the truck did get hot once before we did the last set of head gaskets. Didn't check the heads. We cleaned them up, put them back on with new gaskets. Now, the gaskets were not Ford factory gaskets, but they were from the manufacturer that makes the Ford gaskets, which should be just as good. Well, apparently not. So I bought brand new heads and all Ford gaskets, including the head gaskets, reused the studs, and so it's back up and running. I still need to clean off all this residue that I just showed you, but I got another thing happening right now. When I put me and my buddy put the new heads on, supposedly there's a plug in the back of each cylinder head that plugs off for fuel. So when we went to go prime the system to do the first start the other night, it was puking diesel fuel all down the back of the head and onto the drive shaft, onto the ground. You can kind of see a puddle right there where it been leaking when I got home. So we found plugs, put the plugs in there. Was driving around for most of the day, no problem, absolutely no problem. I get home, or on my way home, I see smoke coming out from underneath the hood. So I get it home and I check real quick. I smell fuel, shut it off real quick, and it's leaking out of one of those plugs on the driver's side. So that's what we're going to do today, is try to fix that leak. I don't know if that plug's loose or plug blew out or what, but we're going to be doing that. And while I had everything apart, I went ahead and installed a EGT gauge, measure exhaust temp. So I got that mounted up. The wiring to the pyrometer is there, but now I just need to wire up the gauge. So we're going to be doing those two things, and hopefully we'll be good to go. So I don't know if you'll be able to see right where the light's at. That's the plug right above that, like freeze plug. There's a little Allen head plug up there. That's the plug that I'm talking about. But it looks like it's in there all the way. It looks like it's tight. I can't tell for sure if fuel's coming up from up above in the valley. So I'm gonna go up to the top and take a look up there, check the tightness of this plug, and try to figure this out. So it's dripping. I got the plug out. I'm gonna clean it up and try to put some Loctite or Teflon or something on it, try to help seal it, get it get it tight so it won't back out again. Hopefully that'll fix it and get that back in there, clean this all up, and take for a test drive and see how it works. Go ahead, put some Loctite on this. See if I can get my hand back up in there without knocking the camera over. Getting drips on my diesel fuel. There we go. A bit in there. Oh, right in the nose. Oh, there you go. Like I said, without dropping it. I'm gonna have to sit you guys down. I need a light to see what I'm doing, so we'll be back in just a minute. Alright, so I gave it some time. I let the Loctite dry for a little bit. We're gonna cycle the key on, build some pressure, see if it leaks, see if it's fixed. Not dripping. I think we're good. Gonna give it a start. I think we're good. Now I'm gonna wire up that EGT gauge, get that working, and then go for a test drive and make sure it's really not leaking and make sure the gauge works. So let's do that now. Okay, so here we got the instructions. I already got the sensor and wired up. I got the sensor connector plugged into the back of that gauge. Now this is showing for the gauge itself. Red is a constant 12-volt source. White is switched source, so when I turn the key on it has power, but when the key's off it doesn't. Black is ground on 12, and orange is to the headlight switch, so when I turn the headlights on the backlighting in the gauge comes on. So now I've got my test light. We're gonna poke a couple wires and see what I can come up with. See where I can splice all these wires in. I got my fuse panel right here. So I don't know if I want to go right into that. that right there, I've got 12 volts. I've got 12 volts there. I don't see any more. So I've got 3 options I can use as a solid 12 volt source. So really, all I need now is to find an ignition switched source. So what I'm going to do is test probably these 5 or 10 amp fuses. I think the instructions call for like a 3 amp, so probably try to find a 5 amp. Test these fuses for switched power. So we'll say this one right now has power, so I'll find one that doesn't have power and then turn the key on and see if it's powered. Now, once I find one that's not powered, or when it's powered when just the key is on, then I will do some research and find out what that fuse goes to, see if I personally want to tap into the back of the fuse box. That one right there. That one right there also. That one doesn't have power. When I turn the key on, sorry, it does. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. But key on has power. Put it down. Key off, doesn't have power. So I'm going to do some research, figure out what that fuse goes to, pull this fuse box out, and find the wire, cut it, tap into it, and be good to go. So I found one of the fuses is actually to the ignition switch, so obviously that's going to be key on has power, so that's the one that we're going to tap into. Just got to get this fuse box out, figure out exactly which wire it is. We'll probably disconnect the battery just to be safe. Cut the wire, splice into it, or I'll just cut the insulation out, wrap the new wire around it, solder it in, and be good to go. Pull this panel out for the headlight switch, figure out which wire I need for that, and should be pretty simple. Right there. All right, so we have the constant 12 volt source right there. We have the switch source right there, that white wire going to the red wire. That's kind of hard to see. Got black going to ground. This is all just temporary, just to make sure everything works. I'm holding the orange into the back of the connector for the headlight switch. Now let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. Clear stuff out. Should be able to see that. So, key on, switched, it's doing its thing. It's reading probably 70 degrees right now. Let me turn the headlight switch on. So it dimmed. so it's not blinding you at night. Headlights off, it's reading. So I think we're good. I'm gonna put all this together cleanly and route all the wires properly and get it all soldered up, and we'll go take it for a test drive. See how it works. See how I like the position, like sitting in the driver's seat. I know that's kind of hard to see, but I mean, being down low like this, not up on the A-pillar like everyone else has it. It's kind of tucked out of the way, hard to see. No one else really knows it's there. I think it's pretty clean spot for it. Makes it look clean anyways. So I'll go ahead and get this all wired up properly and we'll be back. So there's one key important part about working on your own vehicle at your house, at your shop, wherever you're working on it at. Especially, you can see out in the desert, it's really hot. You gotta stay hydrated. Come on, guys, stay hydrated or else you'll die. So moving on, I got panel back in, kick panel back on, gauges back in. I had brought my soldering iron to solder wires in, proper way to do things, but I forgot solder. So everything's butt connected, taped as best as I could do it. Later down the road, I will tear it back apart and solder it properly. But for now, it's working. So turn the key on, does its cycle. It's reading 70 degrees right now. Truck hasn't been running except for that maybe 10 seconds checking the fuel leak. Turn the lights on, it dims down. So we're gonna start it and double check fuel leak, make sure that's okay, let it warm up, and then later we will take it for a test drive. So I'll let it warm up, put my tools away, and then we'll go take it for a test drive real quick. Looks like it's working. So keep driving a little bit more, test it out, see really how hot it gets, because I really don't know how hot it actually gets. Kind of the reason why I switched to the bigger tune and the 4-inch exhaust to kind of help with keeping exhaust gas temp down. Sorry, let me roll the windows up. Keeping the exhaust gas temp down. From what I've heard, buddy that has the same truck, same tuner, has it on the highest setting only because the truck runs cooler EGTs. So put it back to the performance tune. Supposedly it messes with timing more, so EGTs stay down. I'm cruising 55 miles an hour right now, and it's 600 degrees, which that's really good. It's actually kind of low, but I'll keep driving this more, keep watching the gauge, see how it reacts to different driving conditions, and I'll stop and check, make sure there's no more fuel leaks, and should be good. So I don't know how much you'll be able to see the gauge when I'm doing this, but right now it's reading 310 degrees. So I'm gonna do a quick pull, see how high and how fast it goes up. I know the stick's in the way, just hold on. Got all the way up to 1300 degrees, which is cooking. That's a little more than what I'd like to see, but now I'm already back down to cruising at 55 and it's 500 degrees, so it cools down pretty quick too. So looks like it's working how I had anticipated. I like the positioning, driving it. It's clear to see. It's not in the way of anything. It's not up on the dash where people can see it, where it blocks my view of anything. So I think we're good to go. So made it back home. Quick test drive. I wasn't sure if you guys were able to see what it was reading while I was driving. It's kind of hard. I had it stuck between the seat, kind of pointing up, and I know it shows up weird on the screen anyways, but been home for maybe 30 seconds and it's already down to 260 degrees, cooled down quite a bit. I always like to let vehicles, especially turbo vehicles, idle before I shut them off, cool them down a little bit. Yeah, everything seems to be working fine. There's no fuel leak. Nothing's dripping. Nothing's on the ground. So we're good there. But definitely, if you like this video, liked kind of the install, I didn't get everything, but of the install of the gauge anyways. Kind of fixing the truck, letting you guys know what happened with the engine. But everything seems to be working fine now. I did have a little weird noise after we got it running on the first test drive, but weirdly enough, changing the tune got rid of the noise. So I don't know what that had to do, or if coincidentally putting more miles on it got rid of the noise. But yeah, that'll do it for this video. So comment, like, subscribe, and definitely help me out there. Thanks for watching. See you next time.